Hello, everybody. Well, that would help if I record. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Mike Smith. Thank you very much for downloading and subscribing to the show. Please visit the main website at miketechshow.com. You can email me questions and suggestions for show topics at miketechshow@gmail.com. Please visit the YouTube page for all the videos of every show. That's at youtube.com/Michael Smith MTS. And please click subscribe. I really appreciate it. This show is brought to you by Instant House Call. Robust remote support for IT pros and MSPs, providing unattended and on-demand remote access. Try it free by clicking on the link on my website at miketechshow.com. Use the promo code MikeTechShow for your free 15-day trial. This show is also brought to you by MagnusBox. This is the best online backup that you can provide for your customer. You can easily become a partner. And even before you sign up, go to magnusbox.com, get a demo, download it, try it out, test the backup, kick the tires. You will love it. They support Office 365 backup. That supports all operating systems, including Windows Server, Windows 10, Windows 11, Linux, Mac, Synology, which at its core is Linux. So check that out. You will love it. And if you mention you heard it here on the Mike Tech Show, not only do you get your white labeling free, but your first 3 months, the platform fee is half price. Go to magnusbox.com right now and check it out. So I have been extremely busy. This is the first show being recorded from my house in Florida. The last 3 months I've been back in Pennsylvania, so it's good to be back here. And it's certainly a little hotter already. I have some personal things I'm going to talk about over the last 2 weeks, and then customer service story that I absolutely have to cover. Stories from the trenches from last Thursday through this Thursday. Each day I have stories and lessons and all sorts of great tech stuff. I have a great email from Drew on PowerShell where he sent me 9 links. So I'm not going to go over every one. I'm just going to do it quickly and just kind of give you the overview. Kate sent in a Windows 11 tweaks program that I'm going to talk about, and then I have questions for you for some help for a customer. So let's go back to September 10th, where my son Ryan and I went to New York because I have tickets for Madison Square Garden, Pearl Jam on 9/11. We had a great weekend. I was talking in the pre-show. There was an elevator incident where we were stuck in the elevator for a little bit on Saturday night. And then we got over that. And then this is where it leads to the customer service story. So actually a couple days, actually the weekend before that. See, now I think it's the weekend before that, Sullivan's Steakhouse, I took my wife to dinner. It's a high-end steakhouse in King of Prussia. And the reason I'm calling them out, in sort of a good way because of the customer service. To make a long story short, when you order a filet mignon in a high-end steakhouse, you should get it the way you ordered it. I ordered medium. And it was pretty raw in the center and burnt to a crisp on the outside. And I was very, very disappointed. My wife, hers was a little rarer than she likes, but She liked it. I got my waiter, whose name was Michael, also. He came over. He seen it. He said, I'm taking this back. And he got a separate plate and said, could you put that on the plate? And I moved it over to the plate for him. And it took a while. When I got it back, it was more medium. It was probably like medium well at that point. But they just burned the heck out of it to the point where it tasted like leather. It was uneatable. And I called the waiter. I told him, and he said, I'll get my manager to talk to you. Manager came over. What can I do? And I said, you know what? By this time, it had taken so long for everything. My wife was finished dinner. I'm like, I want to check. I want to get out of here. I said, you know what? Just get me a check. And he said, no check. He says, nothing. So I asked to see the waiter. And this is the lesson that I want to, because it was not the waiter's fault. And he took care of us and did everything proper. And this is a lesson. If something like that ever happens and you're getting comped for your meal, the waiter doesn't make anything. So I pulled out, it would have been at least $200. So I pulled out $40 cash. I'm glad I had it on me. And I gave him the cash and said, thank you. This was not your fault. And it made me also, and that was a customer service experience I didn't expect. The manager, no hesitation. No hesitation. He could have easily just said, look, I'll comp you, your dinner, they obviously have to take that off, but maybe offer me a drink or free dessert or something. That's what I kind of figured was going to happen. But I didn't expect the whole meal to be comped. So, because we had some drinks and we had appetizers and, it's a message that's what you have to do. If you mess up, you lay on your sword. We're going to talk about messing up. Yes, don't worry. We're going to discuss the Malwarebytes debacle yesterday. So I'll be on my soapbox for that. That's a little later in the show. So the lesson is to go over and above in making it right. So now, instead of me walking out telling my wife, well, we'll never go back there, I actually would give them another shot. It also made me think of something else, because after that, there was another day. Yeah, that was Saturday. And then we had Monday, which was Labor Day, at Fugu de Chao. And I had a gift card from one of my kids. And also, when it came time for the tip, after they deduct the gift card, remember to tip for what the full price is. I'm very sensitive to tipping. I'm very good. I don't over tip unless the service is great. But I know, because I had children that were working, serving in restaurants while they were in high school. So that's something that, and my oldest son, while he was in college, was a waiter. So that's something I'm very sensitive to, because I know all the stories where they helped a party of 15 and got a $10 tip, and he busted his butt and did incredible work because they thought that the tip was included in and it wasn't. Some restaurants, over so many people, I don't want to get into a restaurant show, but just the message is, if you did something wrong, if it's your fault, overcompensate by rewarding them. So now, this office here in Florida is almost complete. While I'm recording this show, there's a line being finished running around the house, outside, underneath, that is going to then connect to the circuit breaker that's in the back in a panel for my split mini air conditioner that's going to finally be installed in my office. Now, I got a great air conditioner for the property, but it's not enough for this room. And especially when I got all the doors closed and it's hot. It feels like 98 outside right now. And I need that extra oomph for the air conditioning. It's been delayed. It's finally tomorrow. It should. So I am excited about that. And this room finally being finished. So last Thursday, since I was scheduled to fly out Friday morning, there was no way I could do the show. I was finishing up all kinds of work, including some kind of post-mail migration for the one client that we did a mail migration. We were successful, and this is the Outlook lesson. If you're dealing with a mail migration and everything's set up for an Outlook profile, don't mess with that profile. Create a completely different one. If they have a profile called Outlook, call it Outlook 2. Call it Outlook 3. Whatever it takes. Create a brand new profile for the new email migration. Add whatever data files you have to or whatever email accounts. And this is a great example. This is the client that went from G Suite to Microsoft 365 email. Contacts that were local to the computer for two people were not there. And it took them a bit to realize, and there was only the difference was like 20 or 30 contacts, but you don't want to build them again. When she said, one employee, she called me, she says, is it possible to get them back? I said, absolutely, because I did not mess with the PST files or the OSTs. I went into control panel, went to mail, set it to open up the old profile, got the contacts, export it to a PST, go in the control panel, set back to the new email profile, boot it up, imported it to the right place, done. Had to do that for two of those employees. So that's a great post-migration lesson as to why you need to take the time and make sure you can get back to the old profile if you have to. Now, you might have changed already the MX record, so it's not like you're going to get any new mail coming in. But for something like that, maybe there's calendar items that didn't migrate, whatever it is. So now, Sunday of all days, two tech support calls on Sunday. One from my CPA, a QuickBooks issue. He's working, and I remote in, and I noticed something. There are QuickBooks programs running in Task Manager, and it would not load. And this happens all the time. When you quit QuickBooks, depending on what version, and I've seen it across all of them, and you exit, it doesn't close properly. And if you didn't reboot, you're now trying to load QuickBooks again, and it won't load. So you got to kill all the tasks. That anything that just has QB in it, I end them and then restart QuickBooks. That was one. The second one, the NIC card for the son of one of my clients, I thought there was some kind of malware on there because he has gig up and down Verizon Fios, but he's getting 200 meg down and like 10 meg up. He's getting cable modem kind of speeds, not fiber. And I swore that there was some kind of malware or anything. No, it was I find out on Monday night that it really was the NIC card, probably a driver issue. I haven't started that because I had them order a USB to Ethernet, which came in on Monday. Plugged that in, bang. He was 800 up and down, everything running great. So an update or something killed. This is now the third client, I guess, in the last 6 months that an Intel NIC adapter has just started going bad or there was an issue. I haven't deep dived trying to repair that. That's something we are gonna do. So Monday morning, I am I'm trying to I am down here. So this is I'm trying to think, Thursday, then Friday I fly to Tampa. Then Saturday was great, but Sunday I'm doing the work from here. I'm getting all my weekends are all a blur, so you have to forgive me. So this is this past Monday. My phone is blowing up. My son's phone is blowing up. My son texts me and says, "Dad, I'm on my way to a client where the engineering department, there's someone who can't get on the internet. We rebooted. He's tried everything." I remembered this. I inherited this account years ago. And I remember when they were redoing engineering, they came across this switch in the ceiling that I haven't had a chance to do new home runs back to the server closet. So they're kind of dropped down from the center of the room, down the walls, and out from a switch that was in the center. We find out when he gets there, there's another person, and that's when I get the phone call. And my son's like, "Dad, there's two people down here." And I said, "That's right. There's a switch in the ceiling." So he rebooted it. Now, interesting, they've had to reboot that a couple times. And yesterday, he replaced it. So that was just something on Wednesday when he was there. He had to replace it. Now, at the same time, we get a call from the owner of the business that had the mail migration, and his system will not boot. We assume it's the power supply. Now, he originally had a Corsair CX 600M. I know the person that built that, and I love, and this is a big takeaway here for a lesson. You're ever building a system or recommending a system that has to be built, you want a modular power supply, and it's for this reason. When it's modular and has the letter M at the end, and I love the Corsair, it's easy to replace because all of the cabling that you ran to the rest of the system, it just plugs right in. So he had a 600, Best Buy had a 650. My son, on his way from replacing the switch, I checked to make sure Best Buy had one in stock, and just in case it wasn't the power supply and maybe the motherboard or something more serious, make sure, hey, keep the box nice. We can always return it. He goes to the client and just pops it in because it's modular. He's only a few minutes up and running, everything booted. It's running great. So while he was doing that on Monday, I had multiple clients that got infections and just malware junk, even though they're running Malwarebytes, that still getting, where they clicked on something bad and the computer starts talking to them to con them into a credit card. They've now know that not to call and to call us. So, two different clients. I think a really popular real estate site was infected because it's interesting that they were both going to something like Zillow or something, a site. It wasn't Zillow, but it was a site like that they were going to check on property values. And I think that's where the infection was. So, because there's just too many, I don't believe in coincidences like that. So that was taking up some time. Then a client got locked out of his system. Couldn't get in. And he had been forced, because of their broker-dealer and the software that's installed on the system, forces them to change the password too often. And I have a comment on that. So he couldn't get back into his computer, and I Luckily, we have an admin local account, and there's no real server here. It's just a peer setup. I was able to remote in, log in as the admin account, which it then forced me to change the password for me, and that's okay. I did that because I knew the old password and changed it. Then I reset his password, and he was back in. Lesson: no matter what, have a local account that only you know the password for any systems that you're monitoring or maintaining or supporting. You make sure you can get in when that situation happens. Now, it's much easier if you have a domain controller on a server, but this is just important. So that was just a little overview of Monday. Let's talk about Tuesday. Recovered data from an IDE hard drive. I can't make that up. And this is down here. And it's my electrician handyman who's actually helping doing the work, doing the electrical work right now for that split mini AC. He brings by a Pentium system that is so old, and it has an IDE drive, and he wants the data off it. And I was like, no problem, but I didn't have an IDE to USB. So I go on to Amazon, and one of the nice things where I'm at right now, which is just 15 minutes from Tampa, I can get a lot of items same day. So this is the morning. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, have that cable, and I'm able to start getting the data off. It was not easy. I kept playing and playing with the jumpers, and I'm going to bring back some scary memories for a lot of people who've done support. Remember master, slave, cable select, and all of those great little jumpers? I had to go through that, and it was driving me crazy because it wasn't connecting. It would show the drive letter for a couple minutes in Windows and not. I spent so much time. I said, you know what? I have nothing to lose here. I am going to plug it in, and I don't even have a straight USB on my Mac. It's a USB-C, and I'm holding up what is a USB-C to USB adapter. Always good to have that. So it's the USB. I plug it in, comes right up, and I'm able to grab all the data on the Mac. Now I'm like, okay, how do I get it from the Mac over to where I can copy it properly to the USB? And it was having trouble transferring to an empty USB. So I said, you know what? I just shared out that directory from my Windows system for on the network, and I transferred it. It was only 4 gig. I grabbed that. Then I get a nice new USB stick, put it on there. He's good to go. So I wanted to talk about that. Yes, it's basic. Yes, but don't discount plugging something in if it doesn't work in Windows. Don't discount plugging it into a Mac or to Linux. I've recovered stuff by plugging it into the back of a Synology device. So keep that in mind. Now, something that was delivered and we're still in the middle of configuring, 7 untangled devices, or I should say Arista now, for a VPN setup that's going to be in the Ohio area for 7 different locations. I'm partnered with someone that's going to be out there locally, but we are replacing the existing VPN setup where their IT company abandoned them. And basically they can't even get into the routers. We're going to take care of it. So that was a great opportunity, and we're in the process of doing that. So that was delivered. I have seen an uptick. And Tuesday, my son was replacing some of these batteries in UPSs. I keep telling myself to put a reminder for the client when we do it. And we're starting to do this now in a calendar. You need to know when you're installing a UPS. And every year, you should just, no matter what, change the battery. But we get lazy and we don't do it. And guess what? Five batteries have went bad across 3 different clients. And all like at the same time. So I'm in a constant process of getting batteries and then scheduling to get them put in. Okay. So now let's talk Wednesday, yesterday. I was at my Tampa client that I've had for a couple years, and now only, he's like a half-hour drive from here. We ordered a new system last week, and this week we scheduled because I'd be here in Florida, which brings me up to next week real quick. My client is a season ticket holder for the Tampa Bay Lightning hockey team. So he has no one to go with him next Thursday night and asked me. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go. So I'm going to a hockey game next Thursday night with my client. So the show next week is going to be Wednesday night. So make a note, next week, if you want to join live, it's going to be Wednesday night, not Thursday night. Now let me get back. So this was pretty straightforward, except for some password issues. Now we got through them, and I used Fabs I took out the existing hard drive, and that's after I deactivated Malwarebytes after doing a snippet of the license. He has Shadow Protect for local backup. So again, launched Shadow Protect, took a snippet of the license number, and then saved that, and then deactivated Shadow Protect. He's not going to use that system again. Why rebuy that software? There's no sense. I examined everything else. I knew not to have to deactivate anything. He already made great notes of all the software, and most of it was cloud-based, where we could download everything, including, Office 365. So now I get my dock, I disconnect his solid-state drive, and I use Fabs Auto Backup 7 Pro, which I love, and yesterday did a phenomenal job of doing a transfer. So this way I went right from that drive to the new system. Took some time because there was a lot of data. And once that was done, started after I'd already installed Office. Now just made sure that his Outlook loaded properly. And it did. Everything looked good. Here's the problem I ran into. Well, it's not a problem, but it's something I need to ask you to help me. And I think the answer is going to be bad. It's no, you can't do this. He uses LastPass and has forgotten his master password. But on his iPhone, he's logged in. Now, he can't change the password because it asks for the old one. Is there anything we can do, or is that like done forever? As soon as he logs out of that, he's done on his phone. Or if he changes phones, the game over. That's what I told him. How can you recover a LastPass master password? I need some LastPass experts to weigh in. Is he just out of luck, or is there something we can do? And I wanted to throw that out there. Now, let's talk about yesterday for a minute, because that was Malwarebytes Day. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So you know how I do love Malwarebytes, and I talk about Malwarebytes, and they love when I talk about them, except for days like nights like tonight. So Malwarebytes, and we didn't know this at the beginning, as I'm at a client, my son is at a client all day, and we are getting crushed. Phone calls, text messages, emails. Luckily, I'm sitting with my client where he didn't mind, where I'm waiting for things to transfer or things to download, and I am calling people back and I'm telling them I didn't know enough in the beginning. And I started telling them to trust and add the exception for where they were going, whether it was YouTube, because Malwarebytes started blocking anything relating to Google. So this was a major problem. And Malwarebytes, I'm going to read their explanation here. And I would say I had, between my son and I, 150 texts, calls. It was disgraceful. And I'm going to complain about yesterday, but then I'm also going to bring up a point. So they've been pretty good. Malwarebytes seems to have one major event a year that screws everything up. Like a couple of years ago, they had that incident where the system couldn't boot. I mean, they push an update because, and I called them on the mat for this, they don't do enough testing. Well, I'm going to bring something else to the party here to talk about that I did not discuss and didn't want to, but I'm seeing it on Twitter, and I have another article because I knew this was happening. And was this part of the problem? Was the massive layoffs that they did the month before? Was this part of that? Was this a retaliation for the layoffs? Or not doing the testing because too many people laid off? I don't know. And Michael, if you want to call me, who's a VP at Malwarebytes and sometimes listens to the show, I'll be glad to talk to you. On September 21st, this is from Malwarebytes, users may have experienced an issue with real-time web filtering component of our product blocking certain domains, including google.com. In addition, the Nebula and OneView consoles may have experienced slowdowns. I like, great spin doctor, may have experienced. Well, guess what? Every one of my clients experienced it. And I'd love to get my time back. Thank you very much. Once alerted to the problem, our product team resolved the issue and released an update to our web protection database. Now, one of the things that I didn't know early on, but then learned later in the afternoon as they kept calling in, if you turned off web protection and just turned that off, you're all good. They finally released an update, and as long as you did the update, because they said it pushed to everybody. Well, no, it didn't. Now, they have a cause here. Why did this happen? This morning, during a routine update, an error was introduced into the Malwarebytes web filtering database, which caused various domains to be inadvertently blocked. We are planning an exhaustive analysis of our process to ensure an issue of this type does not affect our customers again, and we are putting in place new procedures as a result. Well, this happens every year with a major problem, and it's because they don't test enough. They don't have a sample of real-world systems, I believe, that they're testing that's outside of their private network. They say they do. I don't think they do. Now, I want to read this. And this is from last month. Cybersecurity giant Malwarebytes has laid off 125 employees, or about 14% of its global workforce. News of the layoffs began circulating on LinkedIn last week, with former employees sharing that they had been let go during big layoffs at the company. The founder, Marcin, who founded the company in 2008, confirmed the layoffs to TechCrunch, and that's where I'm reading this from. One former employee said that it actually was like 160 employees. And the individuals were laid off in a Zoom meeting during which they were told it was their last day at the company. Was this a retaliation by someone that was laid off, that was unhappy, that put some kind of a Trojan in place or something? That was kind of floating around Twitter. And I was like, oh my, that's not out of the question after they've done such a big layoff. I mean, do I think that? Boy, I hope not. Or I hope that they would have things changed so people who had remote access and had certain access to things wouldn't be able to do that, or if they did, just interesting. And I wanted to throw that out there. I'd like Michael, I'd like you to address that to me if you can. I mean, not that I'm anybody, but I just want to get it off my chest. So here's the thing. If it's just one incident a year, I don't know, how bad is it out there for MCSoft and Bitdefender? And I want to hear from the MSPs that listen to my show. What do you use, and what thing? Nobody's perfect. I know that. Is one incident, that's okay? We just dealt with yesterday. It was a bad day. It really killed my son and I, having to respond to everybody and get to everybody and get everybody. And it was an inconvenience to all of our clients, but it was just one day. Has there been more that's impacted with other products? I would love to know. Nobody can be perfect. I know that. But it seems like it's always an update that then causes this chain reaction of blocking things. Or here you go. Remember the printing issue? You couldn't print. I remember that. Remember the Malwarebytes incident where the systems couldn't boot? This has us seriously reconsidering using Malwarebytes for the first time. I mean, I thought of it before, but you know what? I don't know. And I need to hear from everybody, and I will share it. I want to know. Am I jumping out of the pan into the fire if I do that? I don't want things that are worse. I need your stories, and I would really appreciate you recording a voicemail that I play, or as an MP3 and send it to me, or just shoot me a note saying, hey, Mike, I use XYZ, and we have little problems, but never something this major. And it's how you. Taz made a good point here in the chat. It's how you handle it. How has Malwarebytes handled it? How am I being compensated for my time? What am I getting? Where's Malwarebytes helping the MSPs who they were killed yesterday? So how are they, have they come clean? A little bit. Yes, they reacted quickly, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate that they even talked about this. But how did a bad update get pushed? To me, you don't have a change control, and I've hounded them on this. What is your change control procedures? And they really need to look at that. And I thought this was no longer a problem, but clearly it's back, and it is. And it's very interesting. And if they're already in a money problem because of the layoffs, where 14% of their global workforce was eliminated, I now have concerns. And we'll have to see. And let's see over the next coming weeks and how they respond, and really be very transparent to us and let us know what happened. I appreciate that. So that is yesterday, and we're not even done covering yesterday. So now what I really want to demonstrate is Microsoft Support and Recovery Assistant. I had a terrible problem with a client. That Office vanished. Oh, yes. Yes. Office vanished. And what is just, how can that happen? How can Office just be uninstalled with no human intervention? We tried everything. I tried DISM. I tried SFC. We tried reinstalling Office, and it would not install. It would crash. It would just stop. It was horrible. My son spent hours. I started working on this last night, and then I came across the Microsoft Support and Recovery Assistant. This fixed my problem, and I wanted to demonstrate this. And this is a reason to go to YouTube and take a look at this, because I have it on the screen on one of my test systems. And when you first download this, and that link, of course, will be in the show notes, you can fix problems with Teams, Office, OneDrive, Dynamics 365 Online, Outlook on the web, Advanced Diagnostics, Outlook for the Mac, mobile devices, Skype for Business, Outlook, resolve over 10 different problems, Windows. Let's go to Office. So you click Office, and then these are the things that you can fix. Now, I'm not going to go any further than this screen, but the first one, I have an Office 365 subscription, but I'm having trouble installing it. That's exactly what happened with this client. I checked that, went through everything. You have to have the login for the user for a valid Microsoft account. It confirmed that. It checked the tenant on the 365 admin. It went through everything, and it installed. What I needed was the 64-bit version, and it worked. This is the first time I've used this tool. So now there's two groups of people that are listening. The group that never heard of this utility that I'm now sharing it for the first time, and the other group that is yelling at this podcast saying, Mike, where have you been? How do you not know this? So I thought that was interesting. I love some of these options, and I'm going back and I'm looking at Outlook now, and Outlook won't start. I need help setting up my Office 365 email and Outlook. Outlook keeps asking me for a password. Boy, that's a common one. But I know to manually go into Credential Manager. Outlook keeps saying trying to connect or disconnect it. The Teams meeting option isn't shown. Or here, I'll skip. I'm having a problem with my calendar. This is awesome. Even if you don't go any further and you just look at the different options that the Microsoft Support and Recovery Assistant can fix. Wow. Is that awesome? And I wanted to bring that up as, this is something that needs to be in your tool bag. I'm going to use it more and more, especially since it was successful last night. That link will be in the show notes. So quick for today, long story short, helped a listener who's now a client with his client. And you've heard me over and over. When there's a network problem, when there's an issue, a server had to be rebuilt. The long story short, workstations couldn't get to the shares on the server. I remoted in and, of course, used Instant House Call to get into everything. And we determined very quickly the IP address for the DNS server the Active Directory DNS integrated server, that's not what was being used on the workstations. Once I manually put that IP address in, bang, they were able to connect to everything. So he's now going forth doing that for the rest of the systems. The long tail solution's going to be changing the DHCP instead of the router firewall, giving out the DNS. First, try giving out the right DNS, but I would rather see DHCP from the domain controller. That's how it should be. And it should be set up to give, IT people do a shortcut, I noticed. Certain support people I've noticed on things that I've inherited, and they don't have the Active Directory DNS set up properly. That at least was set up, and the forwarders were set up correctly. But DHCP was not installed on the server, and that is something that should be done and could, negate something like this happening. Okay. 2 emails to wrap up, and then a couple other questions. This is from Drew that I promised in the beginning of the show. This is in response to some more PowerShell tips and links, and boy, did he provide them. Big fan of the show. I think it's cool you want to get into PowerShell. First off, by no means am I a guru, but I have really gotten into PowerShell at my job. Try do all of your learning and writing in PowerShell 7.x.x. Some commands only work in 5.1, but the MS docs will tell what version they are able to be run on. Also, once you start writing scripts, I think it's best to install Visual Studio Code, the free version, and make a GitHub account and use GitHub Desktop to manage your scripts. They can be public or private once on GitHub. Here is a link to my PowerShell scripts on GitHub and a guide I made on GitHub Desktop. I'm going to have those links. He continues, I think the easiest way to learn is by having it solve a problem or speed up a task usually done in a GUI. Though old, these videos will give a good rundown of topics if you're trying to multitask. This is a docs.microsoft.com PowerShell. Awesome. I think the easiest, let's see. Let's continue. Microsoft Learn has some really great tutorials that are somewhat interactive. I have those links. A link, are you ready for this? Discord has a PowerShell. PowerShell.org has their discord.gg/PowerShell, and they have great folks that like to help. So here's another reason for Discord, not just for the Mike Tech Show, and that link will be in the show notes of every show. Please join our forum so you can get help. There's great discussions happening in Discord for the Mike Tech Show. Now, here you go, Discord for PowerShell. And something else, I'm going to be working with Taz and certainly, Photo Ray. We're going to record a tutorial for getting the most out of Discord, and that's going to be a show. We're going to do that offline, and I'm going to post that up as a show, and that's something I think we're going to be talking about next Tuesday night. I want to get that scheduled and get that recorded. That would be great. He continues, there is a podcast for PowerShell. I have the link for that, and I know you are not a fan. Well, no, it wasn't that I wasn't a fan of Learn PowerShell in a Month of Lunches book, but I encourage you, give it another shot. No, it was while having the terminal open. It was making the time to read a book and then having it in front of me, where if it's more interactive and it's a PDF, you know what? I need that book in a PDF, I think. And that's what, let me know if that's possible. Learn PowerShell in a Month of Lunches. And I need to have it on a screen, side by side with a screen that I'm going to be working on with the scripts. And that's something I intend to do down here because I have so many screens. Anyway, Drew, thank you. Thank you so much for that. The final link for tonight from Kate, who's just goes back so long, early, Mike Tech Show listener from Canada who has retired, who has done IT support. I've been enjoying over the past 2 or 3 months hearing you recommend utilities and things I wrote about in my little column 4 or 5 years ago. Makes me smile. Now that I'm retired and don't have to have the latest version of every shiny new thing, I can be comfortable using several utilities that just work for me and not have to worry about what the rest of everybody needs. It's very freeing. You mentioned a couple of things in this show that I might be able to help you with. You wondered aloud if there was a utility that did all kinds of tweaks where you just pushed a button to change something instead of downloading reg files. And yes, there is at least one. And the one that I have for you is an old favorite, Ultimate Windows Tweaker, now updated for Windows 11. And I did not know that. Thank you, Kate. And she continues, I've written about previous versions of this at least a dozen times. And find the new version here. And yes, there's a box to check called Restore Windows 10 Styled Context Menus. That was the big complaint. Of course, this link will be in the show notes. Also, you mentioned portable apps, which is great. But you know what's also great? Windows Repair Toolbox. Yes, and I've talked about that a lot, which is also completely portable and includes the portable version of Patch My PC and the portable version of CCleaner, among dozens of other useful tools. For the really geeky among us, there's a link to Ner Launcher, which will download and update another big whack of tools, but only if you remember to disable your Malwarebytes protection first. Otherwise, Malwarebytes will detect the password crackers as malicious software. Huge time saver, very tidy, often mentioned by me in the past, still totally great. Hope this helps. Safe travels. So, in summary, we got from the windowsclub.com Ultimate Windows Tweaker 5 for Windows 11 and the Windows Repair Toolbox. Yes, they need to be part of your kit for your repairs and on that Ultimate USB toolkit that you never leave home without. So we have the LastPass question. I have a little annoyance. Evernote. After its last update, the icon is missing. The little elephant, the little green elephant on the taskbar is missing. I've reinstalled it. No joy. It seems like this is a problem that Evernote is aware of and they have not fixed it. It's just a little annoyance. The functionality is still there. I completely regret upgrading to the latest version of Evernote because you know how I've complained about the new version, but I finally went to it on my main system and I want the old version, and they do have the legacy, and I'm almost thinking about that's it, scrapping the new version again. I am really trying to change my ways and accept the changes, and that's becoming very difficult. Anyway, does anybody have a little workaround around that? I will share it with everyone. And we went a little longer tonight because I had a lot to cover. And that's it. So remember, please support my sponsors, Instant House Call, Magnus Box, the affiliate of Fab's Auto Backup 7 Pro. Incredible. You can't live without it. I will see everybody back here. If you want to join live next Wednesday night, not Thursday. That's it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.